Day 1. The Potter of Athens. A week in ancient Greece. Before the sun rises over Athens, the potter is already awake. His name may have been Menesicles, or Philon, or something else entirely. We do not know him. Most men like him did not leave us their names. Sometimes a potter signed a vase. Sometimes a painter signed it. Often, neither did. What remains are the vessels: cups, jars, oil flasks, fragments of clay with black figures and red bodies, buried for centuries and lifted again into the light. So let us call him Philon. He lives near the Kerameikos, the potter's quarter of Athens. The name itself is connected with Keramos. Clay, pottery, the earth shaped by hand and fire. In Philon's day, this part of the city is not a quiet museum district. It is a place of work. There is dust in the air, smoke from kilns, the smell of wet clay, animal dung, olive oil, sweat, and wood smoke. Athens is beginning to wake. Somewhere beyond the workshops, donkeys move along the road. A woman calls to a child. A slave carries water. A trader curses softly as he adjusts the load on a mule. The Acropolis rises in the distance, not yet the marble vision we imagine from postcards, but already sacred, already watching over the city. Philon's hands are cracked at the knuckles. He begins with clay. Most likely the clay has already been dug, cleaned, and prepared. We should not imagine one romantic artist walking out alone at dawn to scoop earth from a riverbank. A workshop needs rhythm. Clay has to be selected, soaked, cleaned of stones and roots, kneaded, and left until it is workable. The best Attic clay is rich in iron, which is one reason Athenian pottery can fire to that warm orange-red color. Philon presses his thumb into the clay and feels its mood. Too wet, and it will sag. Too dry, and it will fight him. He cuts a lump and brings it to the wheel. The wheel may be turned by an assistant, perhaps a young apprentice, perhaps an enslaved worker. We cannot know for this workshop. Ancient workshops were not all the same. Some were family businesses. Some used hired labor. Some used enslaved labor. In Athens, freedom and beauty lived beside dependence and inequality. The hands that made beauty were not always free hands. The wheel begins to turn. Philon wets his palms. The clay shudders, wobbles, then rises. There is a moment every potter knows: the fight before the form. The clay wants to lean. The potter wants it centered. His fingers press inward. His palms steady the outside. The lump becomes a column. The column opens. A hollow appears where there was only earth. Today, he is making cups. Kerameikos. Shallow drinking cups with two handles, for a man who plans to host a symposium, a drinking party. Wine will be mixed with water in a crater, then poured into cups like these. Men will recline on couches, talk politics, recite poetry, argue about love, praise athletes, tease one another, and perhaps drink more than wisdom recommends. The cup Philon shapes today may one day touch the lips of a citizen who votes in the assembly. Or it may be broken by next month, or it may survive 2,500 years. Philon does not think in centuries. He thinks in orders. He lifts the cup from the wheel with a string, sets it aside, begins another. The workshop is not silent. Pottery is not a solitary art here. Someone prepares more clay. Someone checks vessels drying in the shade. Someone sweeps broken fragments from the floor. A painter, perhaps working in the same shop or closely connected to it, examines a leather-hard cup and plans where the figures will go. This is important. The potter and the painter may be the same person, but they do not have to be. On some surviving vases, we find signatures. So-and-so made me, or so-and-so painted me. That tells us that ancient Athenians understood these as related but distinct skills. Philon shapes the body. Another man may give it a story. By mid-morning, The cups have stiffened enough to be handled again. Philon trims the foot. He attaches the handles. Small gestures matter. If one handle sits slightly too high, the balance is wrong. If the foot is too narrow, the cup may tip. If the walls are too thick, the vessel feels clumsy in the hand. Beauty, here, is practical. The painter comes closer. On one cup, he may paint a scene from myth. Dionysus with vines, Heracles with his lion skin, Athena in her helmet. On another, a youth at exercise, a horseman, a musician, a satyr. Not every vessel is grand. Some are quick. Some are made for export. Some will travel farther than Philon ever will, across the sea to Etruria, to a tomb, to strangers who admire Athenian work. The black areas are not painted with modern paint. They are made with a fine clay slip, a refined liquid clay. It looks modest now, but the kiln will transform it. This is one of the quiet miracles of Greek pottery. The colors are not simply added, they are revealed by fire. If the cup is decorated in black figure style, the figures are painted as dark silhouettes. Details can be incised with a sharp tool, cutting through the dark slip to show the red clay beneath. If it is red figure, the process is almost reversed. The background is dark, while the figures remain the red color of the clay, allowing finer painted lines for muscles, folds of cloth, hair, movement. In Philon's lifetime, depending exactly when we place him, both traditions may be present. Black figure is older and still respected. Red figure is newer, more flexible, perhaps fashionable. A younger painter may prefer it, an older customer may not. By noon, heat gathers in the yard. Someone brings bread, olives, perhaps onions, figs, or cheese if there is enough money for it. There may be diluted wine. There is no fork, no tomato, no potato, no coffee. The ancient world has its own tastes, and many of ours have not yet arrived. Philon eats with clay under his nails. A customer arrives. He is not necessarily rich, but he wants the cups ready before a gathering. He asks whether the handles will hold. He asks whether the painter can include Dionysus. Not too wild, perhaps. Respectable, but lively. The painter smiles. Respectable Dionysus is always a negotiation. There is talk of price. We do not know exactly how much Philon earns from a day like this. Prices varied, quality varied. A plain storage jar and a finely painted cup were not the same thing. Some potters became known. Some workshops produced for wide markets. But most craft depended on labor, reputation, materials, fuel, risk, and the mood of buyers. And the kiln is always a risk. By afternoon, Philon checks vessels made earlier in the week. They are dry enough now. Today may be a firing day, or perhaps tomorrow. A kiln is not lit casually. It consumes fuel. It demands attention. It can ruin weeks of work. When the firing begins, the atmosphere inside the kiln must change. First, air is allowed in. The clay turns red in the heat. Then the oxygen is reduced. Green wood may be added. Smoke thickens. The vessels darken. The world inside the kiln turns black. Then air returns. The uncoated clay turns red-orange again, but the areas covered with refined slip remain black and glossy. At least that is what should happen. Sometimes the fire betrays the potter. A blocked vent, uneven heat, too much oxygen, too little oxygen, and the colors fail. A cup meant for a wealthy table becomes flawed. A beautiful figure turns dull. A batch cracks. The workshop loses money. Philon watches the kiln like a man watching weather at sea. He cannot command it completely. He can only know it well. Evening comes. The city changes sound. The public places are still alive, but the working day bends toward darkness. Philon washes his hands, though the clay never fully leaves. It sits in the lines of his skin, under his nails, in the roughness of his palms. Near the doorway, a finished cup catches the last light. Inside it, A painted figure runs forever. A youth with a lyre, a satyr reaching for wine, a goddess turning her head, a warrior lifting a shield. Philon may not think of himself as an artist in the way we use the word. He is a craftsman, a maker, a man with orders to complete, fuel to pay for, clay to prepare, customers to satisfy, and a kiln that can undo him. But centuries later, people will stand behind glass and look at what his world made. They will whisper, "Beautiful." They will study the curve of a handle, the black shine of the slip, the line of a painted ankle. They will ask who made it, who used it, who bought it, who held it in their hand. And perhaps they will forget for a moment that ancient Greece was not only temples, philosophers, and gods. It was also work. It was a man before sunrise, pressing wet clay into the center of a turning wheel. It was smoke in the Kerameikos. It was the patience of hands. Tomorrow, we will leave the potter's workshop and follow another life in Athens. But tonight, the kiln is cooling, and inside it, earth has become memory.